Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Sunday morning, probably for most of you. I am here with tax expert MaCara Santiago, and we're going to talk about taxes for expats today. For people who do file taxes in the U.S. but live abroad, this video is for you. I know for a lot of you that sounds really boring. I'm sorry. But we're not gonna be boring, right? We're not.
We're not gonna be boring because I'm gonna
We're
give
not.
y'all some good tips.
We're giving good tips, things you need to know. So if this isn't like the sexy topic you're looking for, unfortunately, it's part of it's part of what you need to know when you move abroad. You have to know what you need to know you need to know what you need to know for your taxes, right? And so I'm excited to bring the session to you today. Yeah, if you're looking for something super fun and entertaining, this might not be it, but we're gonna do our best. We're gonna give you a little something, but we're also gonna give you some serious information that you need. If this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Rashida Dow, and on my channel, I talk about moving abroad and life in Mexico City, where I live. Um, Subscribe, like, something, something, something. Let the algorithm know how you feel if you want to see me again, or if you don't, that's okay too. But let's get to it. We're talking taxes. So for everyone here, all my regulars, I see a bunch of people who are here all the time. Thank you for being here. All the members of my YouTube membership, thank you for being here. Winnie says I'm a wizard because she was literally thinking of a tax question. I checked into my hotel this morning and I had such a feeling of deja vu, and it was my second time in a week. And I'm like, I have to, instead of like getting weirded out about it, I'm like, I have to accept that, like, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And so I will accept being a wizard and reading your mind, because things like this they're good things. The universe has us all connected in one way or another. Anyway, let's get to it. Hi, friend. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How you doing?
Good. All right. So this is the time where I would like read your bio, but I don't want to do all that. So tell the people what they need to know about you.
Okay, just to be quick, my name is MaCara. I am the owner and founder of Around the World Ledger. So we are a boutique accounting firm based out of Dallas, but I hop all around. And we really specialize for those who are expats, digital nomads, inspiring entrepreneurs. Our thing is to, demystify our complex tax system, but also help you stay compliant to the US tax code, because compliance is really big to me, making sure you just don't stress about all that other stuff.
Okay. How long have you been doing this?
Ooh, so I've been doing accounting and taxes for like over 8 years.
Mhm.
However, when I graduated from college, I ended up taking a specialization in international taxation. And so I really started, I went to Mexico for about 8 months back in 2020. And when I was there, I had like a significant amount of people like, oh, we need you. We need your help. Can you help us? And
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay. And I end up starting doing tax work in Mexico
Oh,
for expats. And
okay.
that's when in 2021 I found it Around the World Ledger. I said, okay, I see there is a need. And
Mhm.
at first I didn't know what was my need, because this particular niche is very male dominated, and it's not many women of color that do international taxation. So, like in the corporate world, I was like, I don't want to do corporate. And people found me, and that's how I started.
Yeah, it's funny when a lot of people are worried about like how they're going to make money abroad, but they already they already have the skills. They just don't know the need is there. Like, if you're a Black woman who can cook, who can do hair, who can do taxes, who can do like 1,000 other things, your clients are right there waiting for you. They're already like, where's she at?
Yes.
Where if you could listen, any kind of skincare, anything that is like anything where we want our provider to be Black, if you're as a Black woman, you want a Black provider, there are people out there who are like, when will you come? When will you?
Absolutely. It
When will
really
you?
is. It really is. So use those skill sets, ladies. Don't be afraid. Use those skills. And
Okay.
gentlemen. And gentlemen.
And gentlemen. It's okay. So here I talk to the ladies, but I know there's some men listening. I don't really be thinking about them though. Sorry, guys. But they know that. They know there's no, I'm not discriminating against them, except I forget they exist. That's all. Right? That's all.
Yeah.
I forget y'all are there. Okay, so I'm starring questions right now. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the comments. I will save them for later. But right now, MaCara, tell us if we have just moved abroad, or if we're thinking about moving abroad, what are 3 things, like the 3 most important things we need to keep in mind, be thinking about, know, etc.?
Yeah. If you decided to, make a decision to move abroad, one of the key things that I like for people to realize is where you're moving abroad to, because that does play a role in your taxation, even in the US. So if you're moving to a country that has high taxes, you're required to file income tax in that country. It's very important to know that. Another thing is where are you a tax resident in the US? That is one of the most important things that I like for people to understand is, are you ready to get to move abroad? Are you excited? Remember where you're moving abroad from. So there are state taxes in some places, only eight states that don't have state income tax. The other ones do. So just know that because you're moving abroad, you will, and you may qualify for some of the exemptions or exclusions. You still can be taxed from where you're leaving from. So California, Nevada, let's say another New York, Virginia. Those matter. And a lot of states do not recognize you moving abroad. They do not care. Another thing is your source of income. Where is that coming from? Because this also plays a role in how you're going to be taxed. So those are the top 3 things that I say before when it comes to taxation. Remember where you're going to, where you're coming from, and your source of income.
Okay. For those people who have watched my channel for a while, they know I don't take notes. I just be out here freestyling. Now you got me pen, paper, notes, making it happen because I want to follow up on all these points.
Okay.
The first point of where countries you're required to file. Can you name not a full list, but name some of the popular countries where if you are a U.S. Okay, this conversation is for U.S. residents who pay taxes in the U.S., right? Who are planning on moving abroad. Is that a good way to describe what we're talking about?
Yes, it can be U.S. citizens moving abroad because,
okay, US. All right.
Yeah, depending on the country they move in, they might not be taxed in the U.S. for certain, sources of income, but may be taxed in the country that they're going to from their sources of income. So, but yes, U.S. citizens that typically required to pay taxes in the U.S.
Okay, so if they move to name some countries, they will also be required to file there. Can you name some of the most popular countries where this happens?
Absolutely, Portugal. One of my number 1 places, Portugal. I see a lot of people wanting to move to Portugal, and the EU itself. When you decide to move there, if you stay there after a certain amount of time, you become what they call a tax resident.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you become a tax resident of that country, you're required to file in that country. Another thing is your intent to move to whatever country you come in. So Portugal, Spain, the EU. So if you go to London, you want to go there. Those are they also tax on worldwide income.
Okay, so
Also,
we
they
have
have
Portugal, the
yes,
EU, we have London. Anywhere else that
yeah, absolutely. So there are there are countries that I call like sticky countries. So it's like you're supposed to file, but you can get away with not filing, and that's because they haven't developed a good system in how to file U.S. citizens. So that is, for instance, if you go to Korea or you in Thailand, also even in Mexico. So there are, requirements that you will end up becoming a tax resident once they get a fully funded system when you decide to become residents of those countries. So that is something that I like to tell people, even though you can get away with it because they're still developing, but their hope is, and trust me, they're getting to the point of wanting, I feel over the next few years, they will end up developing some type of system to start taxing U.S. citizens that that are residents of their countries.
Okay. So with Thailand, Korea, Mexico, Nisha said she has to file in South Korea. There's a requirement that you file, but not really the structure. Is that what you're saying?
Well, there's a requirement to file. Not, and when I say structure, they haven't developed a system, a robust system to capture like residents that live in these countries. Like you can go under the radar per se. Or if you're like having business, even though like there is this misconception, okay, well, I earn money, from the US. I'm typically not really earning money in the country, but if you take on clients that's in the country and probably residents too, that can open up your requirement to that country because now it is that country's income, that you're earning and going through. So it's very it changes from country to country, but Europe is robust. So they do have systems in place, especially when it comes to you wanting to be residents. If you want to file citizenship or become, like I said, residents of that country, they have like a lot of systems in place for you to qualify for that.
Okay. But you do get some good things like that healthcare, and other stuff
You do.
included
You
in taxes.
absolutely do. Absolutely.
Okay. But the people who live there and paying taxes there are still also paying taxes in the US.
Yes, probably if they haven't, if they don't have a U.S. accountant or provider to kind of help them navigate the system, it's possibly that you can be double taxed. And we try to, omit the double taxation because we do have tax treaties in place with a lot of the countries. So that means like going to Portugal, we have a tax treaty. Mexico, we have tax treaties. So what that means, there's an agreement between that country and the US saying that you will not be double taxed on income tax and that it will be excluded depending on how you file, if you file there first or if you file here in the US. So how I normally structure my clients is file first if you're required to file in the country that you're currently a resident in abroad. If you're taxed, on income tax, because most of my clients sometimes do. If there isn't, because there are certain visas too that allow, like in Portugal, that allow this, like golden visas and all that other stuff that say, okay, for 10 years, we want tax, a US citizen or expat for this X amount of time. But if you didn't get that option, then you're required to file. So if you owe Portugal $10,000 in income tax, then once you go to reconcile your US taxes, what we'll do, we'll do a tax credit, a foreign tax credit for the same amount, dollar for dollar. So if you owe $20,000 here, you get to exclude the $10,000 that you paid in Portugal.
Okay. All right. So that doesn't sound like the kind of thing I should be doing on TurboTax.
No, not TurboTax. Absolutely not. Because TurboTax is very, I don't, if you want to, that's fine, but it doesn't really deep dive, because there's so much nuances when it comes to what you qualify for and how to reconcile even your US taxes. So for instance, on TurboTax, also part of that exclusion is if you're taxed in the country of, let's say, Portugal, you do have to convert that the money there to the US to match here. So there is some more work behind that. Some people are like, okay, I paid $10,000, let me write off $10,000. No, it doesn't work like that. So and you can get in trouble if you're doing that. So it's good to have a person that say, okay, if we're going to do this, what is the best for you? Because your situation might be different from another situation. So like with the exclusions and tax credits, and we can dive deeper on like what's good for this person, what might not be good for another person.
Okay. All right. Oh, and I almost forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Disclaimer time. I'm a lawyer. I'm not your lawyer. MaCara is an accountant. She's probably not your accountant.
No.
We're not telling you what to do. We're giving really general information. Don't be out here following us and what we say and not like doing your own research. That wouldn't be smart. And you're smart people. So let's be smart. The past, I want to say like 5 or 6 years, I've really like leaned into hiring the expert, like finding the person who knows how to do the thing I want to do instead of figuring out how to do it myself, because my time could be better spent doing the thing I know how to do, right? If I can pay someone else to do the thing they know how to do, then I have time for someone to pay me to do the thing I know how to do. And look at that. We're all in our own little space. So find an accountant who knows what they're doing and get it done. All right, but let's back up a second. All right, so we talked about Portugal, the EU, UK, and the sticky countries like Thailand, Korea, Mexico. I don't know anybody who files taxes in Mexico.
I know.
Nobody. I mean, I'm sure I know someone, and I just don't know that they're filing taxes.
I do have one client that do file, and they own a business in Mexico. So
I just realized that I think I know one person who does. I don't know if she's filed already, but I know she'll file in this next year, and she owns a business in Mexico. I just realized.
Yes, so I know one person, but most people don't.
Yeah. And when I say business, I mean like on the ground.
Like on the ground.
Buying products in Mexico.
They have an actual brick and mortar business in Mexico. Yes.
Yes. The only person I know who I think files taxes in Mexico.
I wonder if it's the same person.
It might be. Are they in Mexico City?
They are in Mexico City.
It might be the same person. So between the two of us, we might know one person who files taxes in Mexico.
Yeah. And I do. There are employees that there are remote employees that might have a US based employer, but they have also employees in, another country.
Mhm.
So there is taxation part of that too. So
Yeah.
I do want to let people know there are people that do actually pay in certain parts that if they're employees and they have, but again, it's that they have that system to kind of like they know, but the other ones normally go under the radar.
I hadn't even thought about like foreign employees because I always feel like when I think about people who are in another country for a job, I know it's not correct, but in my brain, I'm always like, yeah, the company takes care of that. And I'm always like, yeah, the company, like in my, I know there's stuff you got to figure out on your own, or at
Yeah,
least the company won't do for you. But in my brain, I'm like, they got them. They got somebody to do that for them.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so CK wants to know, how can we follow up with MaCara? Now, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna talk about who you work with and how people can work with you. But hold on. If you have to go, it'll be on the replay or in the description. But for now, let's keep going where we're going, which is tell us now some of the states. You said there were 8. If you can remember all of them, great. But if not, some of the states where if that is your residence when you move abroad, you don't have to pay state income taxes.
Yeah, so it's Alaska. They don't have, Alaska doesn't have state income tax. Florida, of course, doesn't have state income tax. Nevada doesn't. Texas doesn't, where I'm at. Washington and Tennessee, South Dakota,
Okay, I
and
was like,
Wyoming. And Wyoming.
I knew it was like I was gonna say both the Dakotas. I couldn't remember out there what that was. But I didn't. Tennessee for some reason never registers to me. I know a lot of people do. I think South Dakota because it's easy to change.
Yeah, and they say Nevada is easy to change also,
Okay.
because when people change their domicile, you can change, and literally it's easier for you to change in those states because they don't have like certain requirements of like, oh, you need to have your driver's license already in the
Mm-hmm.
state, or you have to have a permanent address. So some people use like mailing, like a postal mailing address, like virtual address,
Mm-hmm.
in those states to like start establishing domicile. Um, those are like easier ones versus like, for instance, Texas, they do require you to have like a Texas state ID to consider a Texas resident. And 9 times out of 10, even getting a Texas ID or a driver's license, you have to have an address on file. So like bill, like a bill or something. So it's a little more harder to get domicile. Like in Texas, you have to start establishing something that, or know someone on ground.
When I actually was in Florida, physically in Florida at my mama's house before I moved abroad permanently. And when I my issue when I was in Florida was California was like, prove to us, prove to, because I moved from California. I was filing it must have been my 29, it was 2020, and I was filing my 2019 taxes. And I hadn't been in the state of Florida. I had not stepped foot in the state of California since 2018. And California was still like, why should we believe, like prove to us
Yeah,
you don't
they
have to pay us our money. And I was like,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, those are sticky states.
okay.
California, Virginia, New York, they want proof of
Mm-hmm.
you out. And
Mm-hmm.
then also you have to like detach yourself. So if you own property that's in the state,
Mm-hmm.
or you have some type of attachment there, they will still try to say you're a resident of that state.
I hadn't thought about the property issue. I just
Mhm.
know they were like, we don't care what you're doing in Florida. That's not our business. Our business is our California tax dollars, please and
Mhm.
thank you. And I was like, I don't even go there. What are we
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't even hard, but like I just had to like my accountant was like, give us proof. And I think it was
Yeah.
like my Florida driver's license and something
Yep.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like it's hard to get out of paying US taxes. Some of these states,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
some of these states are hard to get away from too.
Yes.
Um, okay. So the next thing you said we need to think about is our source of income and how it plays a role in how we're going to be taxed. Can you give us
Yeah.
a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So there are different sources of income. You have, like, for those who will continue working for the US job, let's say you're working remote, you have your W-2 wages. Then you
Mhm.
have those who own businesses here in the US. So like if you know, have a side hustle, side gig where you earning money, then you're required to pay self-employment taxes. And then those who like on pensions or they get Social Security or whatnot, then you have that income. And then we're not even going to talk about like dividends. Like we can, but like dividends, investments, and all that other stuff. But I want to talk like something that's going to help people to like reduce their taxable income and reduce what they, you know, essentially will owe in the US. So why it matters is, one, if you're an employee that is living abroad and you're working your remote job, you are still bound to, one, payroll taxes, which your employer will take care of your payroll taxes. However, is they still will, with 9 times out of 10, withhold your withholding taxes from your check. Now there is a caveat, which I don't see many of people using, is that you can get your job to like not take out certain taxes by you living abroad, but a lot of people don't want their job to they living abroad, so they just leave it alone. So that means that you're actively getting with your taxes withheld. Then you're going to have to reconcile on a U.S. side. So, like if you're doing your income taxes or your federal taxes when you file, you're withholding, especially like I said, you're living in you're a resident of a state that has state taxes. You're just going to have those withheld. So there's nothing you can do about that. For a majority of the states, there are some that will like recognize federal income exclusions. So on the federal side, you can reconcile if you qualify, is to basically exclude up to a certain amount of income, and you can get that money back the job has withheld from you on a federal for your federal taxes. However, depending also is if you are legally able to work abroad, there is also opening of foreign taxes in the country that you're living in. So your W-2 income can end up being taxed on that side of the world. So that is something that you want to be aware of. Also, when it comes to
Slow
those
down for
who,
a second. Because like you just said a lot of things and it felt like a
okay,
fire hose coming at me.
okay,
So if we don't tell our employers that we're living abroad, we still may be able to get some of the foreign income exclusions, right? But we have
correct,
to do our taxes, or we can tell them and they can stop taking out some of that money from our taxes.
correct.
But if we tell them and we stop taking out money from our taxes, then we might end up getting taxed in the country we live in on our
Well,
W.
not even, yes. I mean, it's possibly you get taxed in a country regardless of whether you tell that employer or not to stop taking
Okay.
your taxes. Um, the country doesn't have anything sometimes to do with what your job or how you tax in the US. They don't care. They just want to make sure that you give them the money that they have rights to. So if you're like a resident and you're earning W-2 income and they tax on worldwide income, then that money source income that you're going to be taxed on in that country. So that is something to be aware of. Even though you may can qualify for the foreign earned income exclusion, to reduce or exclude the U.S. income, and you can essentially get your money back of what you paid to the federal government. That don't mean anything to do with, you know, what that country has in store for you. Again, the caveat is there is treaties. So that's the treaty is like part of one of those foreign income exclusions that they give you. So that is the agreement that you won't be double taxed on income tax. So you still will pay where you living at, and then, you know, not pay in the US.
Okay. Explain the foreign earned income exception.
Exclusion.
Exclusion. To
Mhm.
me, like I've never heard the word taxes before. Please and thank you.
Okay, so the foreign earned income exclusion, or the FBIE, it is a tax benefit for US citizens who live in abroad, for them to reduce or exclude. For last year of 2024, it's 126,400, I believe, of income. So earned income. So for instance, if you earned $100,000 in earned income, you can wipe it away. It's gone. You won't be taxed on it. It disappears.
If I live abroad and I qualify for that exclusion.
You have to qualify for the exclusion. So, and then for 2025, it's $130,000. So, for instance, to qualify, so I want to let everybody know, just because you live abroad don't mean you qualify sometimes, because the first thing is intent. Mm-hmm. There are those, what we call, like, you know, they might be nomadic and they come in and out, you know, float, be in the US, but they stay abroad sometimes and back and forth. So you wouldn't qualify. But one is the intent to live abroad, the intent to what your intent is your intent not to live in the US or come back to the US. The next thing is two other qualifications is the bona fide resident qualification, and it's the bona fide resident and the physical presence qualification. The difference between the two is more people may qualify for the physical presence. That means that you are on foreign soil 330 days out of the 12 consecutive months. So if you're in Mexico for 330 days consecutive, 12 months consecutive, and that don't mean from January to like December. It could be 12 consecutive months. So like if you move, let's say, to Mexico in March and you stay gone to March of the next year, then you qualify under the physical presence test for the 330 days consecutive. Now you can visit the US, but once you step foot in the US, that income is not excluded. So let's say, for instance, those who have remote jobs, those who are entrepreneurs, right? And let's say you still working and you earn an income, you decide to go visit, you know, your family in the US for a week or two, but you decide to do some work, it's not excluded. We have to take that money and now it's taxed. So I do want people to know that. So anytime that, you know, you step foot in the US, it removes that exclusion. And now the bona fide residents. The bona fide residence is for those who are typically residents of another country. So let's say, for instance, one is you have to be abroad for a year. 1 year to stay abroad. And let's say your intent is to live in that country. And let's say you get residence. So those who have like temporary residences, permanent residents, you can qualify for under the bona fide resident. And the good thing about being a bona fide resident, if you do come visit in the US, typically then they don't really count. You're not structured to have that 330 days requirement. I mean, you're a bona fide resident, you're just visiting, but your income is still not excluded though. So it's considered U.S. income once you move in once you come into U.S. soil for that income you earn. So that is like some things that people need to know, and it's earned income only. So that's wages, self-employment income, personal fees. Now, if you have pensions, Social Security, dividends, you cannot, that's not excluded. You still have to pay. So just know, like when I said earlier about making sure where your sources of income coming from, that is the reason why I said that, because you don't qualify for the exclusions and some of the foreign tax credits. You still would be taxed in the US as regular, as you just being a regular, US citizen living in the US. And you could possibly still be taxed in the country that you live in. Some countries won't tax Social Security or whatnot, but it just depends on that country.
Okay, very, very important question. You have a four-legged pillow walking around behind you, and we need to see it.
Oh, you speak, Duchess? Come here.
We need to see Duchess.
Yes, Duchess. Come here.
Okay, like this is very important. This is for science. Oh, hey Duchess. Hey Duchess. Oh, that's a real squoofy bear. All right, what kind of pillow is Duchess?
She's a golden doodle.
Oh, so cute. She was back there just like,
I didn't even know.
I'm gonna be making a little bit of a scene back here. Adorable. Adorable. Duchess is a cutie. Okay. Back to the FEIE, because apparently, I mean, people probably did come to see Duchess, but they didn't know it yet. Now they know. Y'all, I'm gonna be distracted every time I see that dog walk by. Okay. I want to make sure I understand working in the US and the 330 days. So say I have not been in the US from January to December 15th. That's more than 330 days.
Yeah.
But if I come over the holidays, I come on January 16th and I stay through the end of the year. So I'm staying 14 days. If I'm working in the US on US soil for those 14 days, does that mean that those 14 days of income is taxable, but the rest of my income isn't taxable?
That is correct.
Oh, I never knew that. Oh, okay. So I know there's some people in here talking about when they work in the US, when they're in the US and when they're not in the US. And I think that's helpful information. Another thing that I'm curious about, and I'm not sure I fully understood, or I got distracted by Duchess. Whatever. If I have residency, so I have, what is it called? I'm a bona fide resident. And say I'm a bona fide resident, can I still be in the US for 6 months and still get that exclusion for the 6 months I wasn't there?
Yes, so you still can get the exclusion. So this is the caveat though to that. The US does not give, for under those who under the bona fide residents, do not give guides on how many days that you're able to stay in the US. Okay. But I do tell them if looks like there's consistency, because again, there's intent, that part of intent. If it looks like, okay, well, I am consistently staying in the US, they can and it's their choice, like not allow you to use the FEIE.
So it's up to the government. If I'm not outside of the country for 330 days.
It is, but even like, because I do have like clients that are bona fide residents that might stay in the US, they might have business stuff, whatever, family things for over a month or two or whatever. So they still qualify for, you know, that the bona fide, under the bona fide residence. I just say, you know, just err on the side of caution. You know, whatever your intent is, if your intent is still to stay in 6 months and then stay 6 months abroad or whatnot, again, they can make the decision on not allowing you to utilize the FEIE. Another thing is, and the reason why they can see that, especially if you're working, is because you still have to pay the taxes while you're working, so that it will be under your tax return, that information. And so depending on if they want to just sit up there and start auditing US citizens living abroad, that could be like a red flag potential. Like, and red flags don't mean it's like, oh, you're going to be audited automatically. It's just something like, what's really going on? They might want to take a closer look or whatnot. So that is something that could happen. I haven't, in my case, seen that happen for anyone, but there are definitely court laws that has happened in the past when, you know, there were people living in the US still, but still holding the bona fide residence. And I think that one of the court cases was maybe like in the early 2000s or late 90s for a person that was living in was a bona fide resident, US, living in Canada.
Okay. And one thing I read before, and I believe is still true, is that even if you just have a layover in the US for a couple hours, that still counts as a day in the US, right? Against your
that is absolutely true. Right, that is true. Even a day, like say for instance, you leave to go to Thailand or whatnot, and over the water, even some over the water, that still is considered the US, like that's still considered a day in the US or whatnot. Okay. And then like once you touch down, typically it's like whatever that 24-hour period is. Once you in that country, then the clock can start. So it is very nuanced in that sense. If they checking for that, don't know. I don't think so. but
now,
that's
new government, girl, this new government.
Okay.
I don't know them people. So I when I'm traveling I'm very conscientious about when does it make sense for me. A lot of living in Mexico, if I'm going far away, a lot of the good flights are going through US, right? Like flying through Atlanta, right? And so I'm very cautious now about like, is this worth a day in the US to me? Even though I have residency, I also try to hit that 330 so that there's no question. Right. And I'll be like, does it make sense to go to the US? And if so, like, what's the best way to like maximize the time so that it works well? Because what you mean? I don't leave the airport, but it still counts as a day of you.
Yes, ma'am. It sure does.
I was here for an hour fighting to get through security. Like, what are y'all doing? Anyway, I think that's helpful to know. All right. We've got a bunch of question stars. So I want to go through some of them. Okay. A reminder that even if we were telling you what to do, which we're not about to do. We're not about to tell you what to do with your taxes. But even if when we answer these specific questions, we were about to tell you what to do, we don't have enough information based on your question to really fully answer. We're going to answer it based on what we have. But if you're sitting on a stack of bricks that you inherited from your auntie in '84 and never told anybody about, it's just like, we just don't know that, right? So like, we're going to answer some questions based on the information we have. It's not advice, legal or financial. And we're gonna flow. These are all gonna be like quasi hypotheticals. All right, let's go. Ooh, Winnie wants to know, what are the U.S. tax implications if you marry a citizen of your new country? Do you file as married? Do you have to file to include their foreign income even though they're not a U.S. citizen? That's a
Yes.
real specific, Winnie. Okay.
Yes, that's a great question. So one, it depends on your situation. Typically, what we tell people is we do not do it filing married, because when you do, it does open up their income. If they're earning income, now you're having to report their income, your spouse's income. So what normally people do would either file married but separate on some cases, which is a lot of married couples do. But then that depends on if you got children in the mix, because that status also eliminates some credits that you will qualify for. But yes, you do not have to, like married filing jointly, you do not have to do that if you don't want to.
But if you do, the U.S. is gonna have some questions about your spouse's income.
You are required to list their income.
Even if they don't earn it in the U.S.
Even if they don't earn it in the U.S., you're a married couple.
How rude.
How rude.
How rude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Halisi says she thought she'd done her homework prior to her move to Portugal, but that homework was found wanting. Oh, actually, that reminds me of a question that I had. Thank you, Halisi. Which was, I hear people talking about Portugal and taxing investments.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing, right?
That is a thing.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about that.
So now, okay, one, Portugal used to be known as what they call a tax haven. So that is for like those who have investments. Cryptocurrency used to be known as the cryptocurrency town or whatever, because that you would not have to tax on those investments. However, now with the explosion of U.S. citizens or expats moving there, there is now opening up the door for Portugal to want to tax on investments. U.S. Tax on investments anyway. And with that being said, there is no FEIE for investments. So like your dividends, or if you're selling, and normally when you tax is when you sell, whatever investment that you do have. So you're on capital gains, you're taxed on capital gains. There is not an exclusion for that. So now you are, a lot of times, is being taxed on both countries for those foreign, even if it's foreign investment. So it depends if you're investing foreignly or investing in the US or whatever. But now it's opening for you to be taxed on everywhere. And they do tax Portugal and the US.
They have figured out how to get their money, and they will get their money.
They have, like, over the years, what I've seen, even with some of the I know there was talks, and I want to say last year, about, and I haven't really like done my due diligence to see if Portugal still offer the tax haven for expats that move there. Most of my clients already did it, so they do get the 10-year, not being taxed, and then that depends on like your professional status. What they would call like high professions, consultants, whatever, like high professions. So my clients typically are not taxed on their income in, whatever income that they have. But Portugal did talk and had talks of removing that. And I think it's just because everyone is getting hip now that they can earn money in their country from expats. Like at first, it was very nice. A lot of the countries very expat friendly, and not saying that they're not expat friendly, but now they're on par with any other Western country, is to be like, hey, we're gonna get our money too if you want to be here.
Okay, that's helpful. So taxes and how people will be taxed isn't often something people talk about when they're thinking about choosing where they're going to get residency, if they're going to get residency. But it sounds like we should be talking about that more.
We definitely should be talking about. I feel like that's one of the top things that people should talk about, because one, it plays a role to, even most people move abroad, like they want to holistically change their life. They want to, be able to extend their income that they're earning further. And so decide on where you go, you have to understand that some places you have to pay taxes in, and some places are higher than even the US. Portugal is one of them. I think they're up to 45% or 47, 45%. Now, yes, you do have the caveat of like medical and, things that are offered that the US don't offer. But then you also have to look into like the medical, like, am I able to get, the services that I need, and at the time do I have to wait 6 months to check a doctor, even though, medical is quote unquote free, which is not, is paid through the taxation system. Also, it's like Social Security. Like, what does that look like in these countries? Because besides tax treaties, there is a totalization agreement. So Portugal, you do have to pay Social Security into their system. You have to pay Social Security. And so knowing that, hey, I'm paying Social Security in this system, I want to be credited in the US. So you can, omit paying Social Security in the US, which I do want to talk about for those who are self-employed, because taxes look a little different from self-employed. It's not like a one shot, I can exclude everything and not be taxed. But with that, you can, not pay Social Security, but you have to pay Social Security in the country that you're living in, and then we'll take that agreement, send it off, and then we'll, have you not pay Social Security in the US.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Now, this is actually in order, but it's the perfect segue real quick. CK wants to know, do you do consultations, analysis of tax positions and potential consequences as we plan expat futures? So
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely, we do. I have a consultation that people can do, and we'll do like a tax analysis of what it is. We'll do it's a whole little spreadsheet, cute, breakdown of what it is being taxed regularly and taxed in the country, you live in, or being a US citizen living abroad. To do that, they will have to book a discovery call with me, which that is a free discovery call, but the consultations isn't free.
Okay. All right. So I just dropped the link to your site, and let me put this on the screen. Bump, 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 bump. They book through there, right? Aroundtheworldledger.com?
Yep, that's it.
All right. Perfect. Okay. So if you want, Nisha said booked. She said, girl, I know you went to Google and found this before I posted it. I know you did. Woo, okay. Now, y'all know we're not booking a discovery call, a free discovery call to get her to do all the work in the discovery call and not pay her no money, because Mama taught you better than that. Right? Like, we're going to respect MaCara's time and her services, and we're going to pay her money for the work she does. All right. But y'all know this, because I have an amazing audience, and we believe that Black women should be compensated for the work they do. So I ain't even got to say nothing. I love that for me and for us. I do. Okay, so, Nisha has a good question. Can you talk about filing when you have more than 10,000 US dollars, I'm assuming, in a foreign account? Is there something special to know to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question, which people really don't think about when it comes to like taxes, because it is separate from taxes. And this is called like compliance. So this is now you're having compliance on a US citizen living abroad, or if you have foreign accounts. So if you have more than $10,000 or earn more than $10,000 aggregate in a foreign account. So like if, for prime example, you move to Portugal, they require you to have, let's say, $10,000 for them to get their visa, their residency, right? And let's say throughout the year you had the $10,000, you have to report that to the US, and that is on what they call a FBAR form. So it is basically, you don't have to pay anything. You can just report the bank account to the US. They want to know, what kind of banks that you have, but it's under our FinCEN, so our financial crimes unit. And they did that because there was like a lot of offshore hiding of money into foreign accounts, so people can hide the money, so um, they did establish that. And so, yes, anytime that you have a foreign account and a foreign bank account, you have to report that every year by April the 15th.
Okay.
So, and that is from the previous year. And it doesn't matter if you can have $2 at the end of December, but aggregate mean anytime that it reached $10,000, you do need to report that.
Okay, that's perfect.
And I
Thank
do FBAR reports too.
you. Okay. Y'all are coming in fast and furious with the questions, but I'm trying to take these in order so I don't forget about anything. Okay, CK wants to know about pensions. Is there any exclusion for the pension that is equivalent to the FEIE?
No, it isn't any exclusion because pensions is not considered earned income. So that means you wouldn't even qualify for the FEIE if you're receiving pension income. So you will be taxed as, you would have if you're just in the US.
Okay. Related, Marcia Unbound wants to know, how does military veterans compensation, retirement, or disability factor into this? Is it different, or is it also considered not earned income the same way?
So good question. Military is a caveat because military is considered a US state government job, and they necessarily do not qualify. If you're like a government job could qualify for FEIE. You're just a US citizen doing a job if you're abroad, if you're living abroad and earning military compensation, right? So that is a difference because, again, I want to say the intent too is, are you just been stationed abroad because you're stationed, or are you just a regular US citizen and you earning, some funds, but you live in another country, so that is something that we have to look deeper into. But typically, just because you're military and you live abroad, if you're stationed abroad, you wouldn't even qualify for FEIE. But retirement and disability compensation is the same as it is in the US. There is, as I mentioned earlier, that is like Social Security, retirement, pensions, and everything is not considered under earned income for if you wanting to get your income excluded. It cannot be excluded.
Okay, so no FEIE for military.
Unfortunately, no. And I normally tell like my clients that do come to me and needing services, like what type of income if they're receiving Social Security or disability or whatnot, you know, if I'm welcome to, you know, do your taxes for you, but it will be the same as if you was in the US. So there's not like really any, you know, difficulties in trying to navigate that. But yeah, so that's for that. When it comes to retire, there's no benefit, unfortunately. I would say, as in FEI, is not no benefit in that aspect for retirement and unearned income. The only thing what I would say is, on a caution side, depending on where you live at, you cannot qualify for like Social Security, depending on the country that you live at. So that is something that, you know, like my active older adult would need to kind of like understand. And typically that is for like what we call ban countries. If you're, you know, living in Cuba, for instance, or you got to stand or something like that, then you're not would be able to get Social Security in those countries. However, once you move to a country that you can get Social Security from, they will give you that back pay in that country, just to let you know.
Oh, they'll give you back pay? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they'll give it. Once you move there, they'll give it, you know, to you.
Because they're not sending US dollars to North Korea, right?
They're not.
You actually said something that I had never even considered before, and you kind of snuck it in. So I want to go back there and add a little exclamation point around that.
Okay.
If you're a US government employee living abroad, no FEIE for you either, right? Is that what you said?
That's right.
Well, the US government really is the king of. Where is the money?
The money. This is a business. The US of A is a business. They care about the dollars, you know, at the end of the day. But there is some. It possibly could be some changes coming down under the new administration. That may not be a benefit. It's like it'll be a benefit.
May or may not benefit the regular people.
Yeah, that's what I say. Certain people it'll be a benefit for. Strategy too. I tell people, like, strategize on how you do everything. You know, like, strategize. You might, yeah. It's sometimes you got to find a way to get behind, you know, up under stuff. But
okay. So CK's question we answered. Marsha's question we answered. Oh, Jam's kid. Okay. Do I need a tax accountant or a tax lawyer to assist with changing domicile state from high income tax state to no income tax state like Texas or Florida before expatriating?
I don't think you need a tax accountant or tax lawyer to assist you in doing that. You just have to know, like, what are the rules of that state that you want to go to, what their domicile, like how can you domicile in that state, and then also what is considered you being removed, you know, everything you have to do to leave the state that you're living in. So you can do that yourself, even though, like, there are people who do consultation. So, like, I do help my clients or those who potentially want to move abroad. That's something that we'll talk about, and how to domicile, because also not only that, with my clients, if they need like a registered agent or whatever. So I do have a registered agent office here in the state of Texas, in Dallas. I'm considered a registered agent. So sometimes, like, if there is, like, you know, I need to get mail from in the state of Texas, that's something that I help them kind of, you know, cross the bridge in doing. But I can, you know, assist, or there are people that can assist you. But honestly, I think that's something you can absolutely do yourself with some, you know, research.
Excellent. Thank you. related, Junket wants to know, is it possible to change your domicile after you move abroad?
It is, but it's hard because the thing is, once you move abroad, like you're abroad, it's some places you got to do stuff on the ground. You know, there might be, you might can call a virtual, you know, mailing place, and let's say in Florida, you know, and ask, hey, I can set up everything online, but a lot of things sometimes takes you to do before you leave. And I say, my opinion is you do that before you leave. But if not, you know, there you definitely, depending on the state, you may can, you know, some states you have to have like a driver's license, so you can't get that abroad. You have to go to their driver's license place to get that done, especially as a new resident.
Yeah. And that's like, I know we said we don't always talk about the tax part, but that is something that I want all of you to consider before you leave. It's something that comes up frequently, and I don't think I say it enough, but yes. Like I said, for me, which is a coincidence, but I left Florida, and when I left California, I just started using my mom's address for everything, and she happened to be in Florida. But if I was paying California state taxes while not living in California, I'd be so mad. Child, I'd be so mad. Those numbers, they don't.
Yeah, I feel, please, if you can, move. If you're in the state that you gotta pay state taxes, leave up out of there, because even like I said, even if you qualify for FEIE, some of the states do not recognize the federal, and FEIE is a federal tax. It's not a state tax. And so a federal tax thing, not state. So you still would be taxed in your state. And I have clients all the time. I have quite a few clients that is still pay state taxes on their income. So I can't say it enough. If you're able to, please leave them.
And like I said earlier, I know a lot of people, I think the easiest one is South Dakota. That's what I hear. Word on the street. South Dakota is the easy. You just got to do some real quick stuff on either online or in the mail, and then you're done.
Yep.
Now, do you want South Dakota residency? I don't know. Does it matter to you? Right? Like, does it matter to you where you have residency? But I know a lot of people do that for ease and maybe speed as well. I don't know. Okay, let's get back to some of these questions. Dun, 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 answered that. We did the physical presence test. We did.
Oh, and Rashida, I do want to that I know I touched on a little bit for those who are self-employed. So I just want you to know for the FEIE exclusion, it's only on income tax and not your self-employment tax. So you still have to pay that 15% for self-employment, just to let you know. So if you're, whatever your net income is, that you still will be required to pay that.
So many taxes, so little benefit. So, like, I don't want y'all know I'm about to go down a rabbit hole, but if we just stop killing other people in other countries, we might pay less taxes or get more benefits in the actual country we paid taxes. Okay, all right. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time there because I always spend a lot of time there. And all right. Oh, this is a good question from Dr. Tijuana Middleton. Doesn't the salary have to be paid to you in foreign currency for FEIE to come into play?
So, is it meaning like, do it have to come out of the foreign country you live in? That's a good question. No. So the good thing though about the FEIE is it's where you base your work out of that is considered, like where you are doing the work out of is considered like foreign earned income. So for instance, if you have self-employment and your clients is US based clients and you're earning your money in the US, but you live in, Mexico, that is considered foreign earned income. So that is a good thing. It's just where you are doing the work out of, not where it's actually originating from. If that is the question that they're asking.
So where I'm physically doing the work, not who is paying me?
Correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay. Yay.
Hopefully that's what they're asking me. I hope.
If it's not, just tell us.
Okay.
At Tijuana. Back to the questions. We got a lot of them. Very specific. If you have Mexican residency and earn as a digital nomad, self-employed, what are your tax obligations and where do you have tax obligations?
Yes. So if you have Mexican residency, your tax and you are a U.S. citizen, your tax implications are the U.S. So you will have to pay federal and or state tax. You have to pay your self-employment tax, depending on how you structured. Also, if you have like a S corp, C corp, there's payroll taxes that you can open up to. So you do have obligations to the US. And again, they tax on worldwide income. All income is what they're taxed on. You may have a obligation to Mexico too, if it's done right, depending on if you set up your business. If you're a self-employed and you have like a brick and mortar, they're going to be open up to the taxation in Mexico also.
Thank you. A question from TJ. As a U.S. citizen in New Jersey with a Mexican 3-year temporary residency, I plan on residing in Mexico 3 to 6 months a year with income remotely from the U.S., and my spouse earns funds day trading remotely. Is this taxable?
Yes.
I'm assuming you need all of the things.
Yes. All of the things is taxable because one, as a U.S. citizen, even though you have a temporary residence, right, and you're residing in Mexico, we could do a bona fide resident if you qualify. Then that 3 to 6 months may not play a role in it, but because I always try to get people to keep 330 in their head, regardless of what. If you're staying in the U.S., 3 to 6 months, you already don't qualify for the FEIE because it's more you're staying less than abroad, less than 330 days. However, when it comes to your spouse, if you and your spouse and you guys are married and you're filing married, regardless of what, your spouse, day trading is absolutely taxable income. And honestly, for day traders, it can be, depending on the flow of your day trading, it can be considered even highly more taxable on your capital gains tax. So it does matter on your aggregate amount of capital. If you get capital gains, then you'll be taxed on it. Now if you're not making no money, then you're not being taxed really. But with day trading, the good thing about when it comes to investments, you can take whatever your losses is against your gains.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, T. Kelly, for the super chat. Appreciate you. I'm really glad we're having this conversation and that you guys seem to have a lot. There should be quite a few discovery calls with MaCara today or scheduled today. Y'all got some questions. Okay. I want to real quick. We're not leaving taxes behind. We're going to come back to taxes, but I want to take a second because MaCara has a passion project that I almost forgot. We could talk about taxes for 2 hours and forget to talk about this, but there's something important that we're talking about today that is not taxes. We're coming back to taxes. Pause on taxes. Let's talk about passports. MaCara, tell us everything.
Yay. Thank you. So one of the things too, as you guys know, a little bit background on myself. I am an avid traveler. I lived abroad before, so I know the importance of living abroad and being able to thrive abroad. And with me creating Around the World Ledger, I'll take care of all that compliance and navigating the U.S. tax code and everything. We also offer like bookkeeping, accounting, but I have stepped back because I did founded a nonprofit called Projects to Passports. And what we do, we will help young girls in underprivileged areas to become global leaders. So we're teaching them, about moving abroad. We teaching them the importance of travel, but also about cultural education, learning how to interact culturally in different countries, how to do business in different countries. We also pay for their passports, and they do a trip abroad program. And actually, our first trip abroad program is to Oaxaca, Mexico, where the young girls would be doing learning Spanish at the University of Oaxaca. We also teach here on ground. They're learning Spanish, a second language, so they could be just global leaders, open up, because it's so important that people understand on how to function outside of the U.S. U.S. think they're just U.S. and nobody else matters. We want them to understand just to have that global leadership. So not only that, like that's my passion project. If you're interested, please check us out. Support. We're looking for board members. We're looking for volunteers, supporters. But yeah, this is one of my passion projects. So we're fully funded. So if you need to reduce your taxable income for contributions, we are a 501c3 organization. So also keep that in mind. But yeah, that's what we are. That's our the ground giving back to the community, especially in communities and underserved communities, because the numbers of it's like 85% of that community don't even leave outside of their community, let alone go abroad and everything. So
okay, amazing, awesome. There's a link to I dropped the link to the site, but there's also a link to donate if you want to donate, because cash always helps. So tell me about your first trip to Oaxaca. It's girls, you said?
It is. It's teenage girls. They're high school girls. And ages 13 to 17. It's a 2-year cohort program. And so in 2026, we also partnership with another organization called ARCOS, and they do like planned trips for schools or organizations. So yeah, they'll be going to Oaxaca. They'll learn about the community, learn about entrepreneurship and how that community thrives, because Oaxaca has this really deep entrepreneurship on how each of the towns work together to allow them to thrive, the women in Oaxaca to thrive, and also learn about food. And again, attending the University of Oaxaca, which is really big, they'll get like certificates for the Spanish course that they will take.
Okay, that's amazing. And how long will they be in Oaxaca?
It's going to be 2 weeks.
Okay. And about how much does it take all in to send one girl to Oaxaca through your program?
Yeah, so typically for the Oaxaca specific trip is $3,500, and that's including like flights. But we normally budget out $5,500 because we'll do different locations. We also partnership with 4-H, and that is a national organization too. But most people heard of 4-H from agriculture, but they wanted to get into this more international cultural space. So they reached out and thought it was a good idea to partner with us.
Okay. So Marissa wants to know if it's possible to volunteer as a mentor. in your program?
Yes, it's absolutely possible to volunteer as a mentor because part of our mission is to make these young girls global leaders by global education, mentorship, and travel experiences. So mentorship is possible. Also, being abroad, like we're building our organization where we can work and thrive and do the work we need to do abroad. Of course, we are on a board grounds up type of organization, but for those who want on the back end, like, advisors and committees who can do the work, you can be anywhere in the world to do that.
Okay. So you need hands. You need all the things, the time, the talent, the treasure. You need it all. So
Yeah,
if people how can they I dropped the website already and I dropped the link to donate money. Um, how can they reach out to you if they want to be like more hands-on involved, if they want to donate their time?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm based out of Dallas. So if you want to be like hands-on and get in the weed of things, you do have to be residing in Dallas, Texas. So if anyone's on here that's in Dallas, yes, we have our location is in the Redbird area of Dallas, and you can participate there. And if you have like other ideas of where you would like to be hands on, like especially when we do our trip abroad programs, there is like, some background checks and stuff that we'll do. But if you're just interested in whatever questions, you can reach out to me individually. I am on like social media, very little, but I'm there. Like I check here and there. But you definitely can reach out to me. And
Okay.
some people, like I think I've seen a couple of names of people that I've actually talked to before or I have meetings with. So I am on WhatsApp. So you can text me too on WhatsApp if you need to.
Okay. I'm going to drop the Instagram link for this so people can message you there. What inspired you to start this project?
Yeah, it's a very like it started out very early age, honestly, and it just like grew. One, projects to passports. The word projects is for those who like lived in the projects, that lived in like low income or government-based housing. I'm from the south side of Chicago, born and raised. I lived in poverty. And I was one of those kids that was like an avid reader. And I always read about like, just global things. Like I was a big, huge watcher of Channel 13, Rick Steves' travel program, Mr. Bean, the British shows and stuff at a young age. But I ended up taking my first solo trip abroad to Cuba, where that was like a really huge eye-opening experience for me. And it also really made me realize, one, my privilege and a lot of the things that I've complained about or was, upset about was very first world issues. And that you can actually thrive on much less, like as long as you got community and you got the people there. And so when I came back from that trip, I did like this little quick, I was in the friendly mood. I just got my income tax and I was like, 5 families reach out to me, I'll pay for their passports. It was nothing planned, like nothing strategic about it, but it was so much of an influx of people. I put that in the back of my mind. And so in 2023, I felt like God really came to me in a dream to like, you need to really, do something. And especially the way the world changes, we need a lot more love. We need a lot more community. And sometimes being abroad, I saw that like there is a lot of community that is not taught and based in the US because we're like hustling and bustling it's just different. It's just different. And so I wanted to, get the girls at a young age, and to be able to like pour into them and let them understand, like, just because you live in, the hood, or you live in low income or project based housing, baby, we go elevate and thrive, and you can. And it's the exposure piece. It's just that people are not exposed. And in learning this, there are so many even study abroad programs that I wasn't aware of growing up, at all, that was for free. Like they will pay for you to go for free. And with my studies, it's like, this is not in our communities. It's just not taught in our communities. It's not given in our communities. People so focused on surviving, and like we want to be able to, you can survive, but we want to open up, like there's other things that you can do outside of where you at.
Okay. So Amina is here, and she's also from Chicago, and her first solo trip was Cuba as well. Yeah, Cuba is a big step for a first solo trip.
Yeah, I did. So again, like a little background, I used to live in foster care too. And like I've been on my own at a very young age. So navigating, they used to call me gypsy, like navigating and going places and jumping up in places was something that was, I was like, hey, Obama opened the doors, let's go. So it was no second thought. It was just like, place like, let's just go. And I don't mind exploring the world by myself. I actually prefer solo travel, honestly.
Okay. CK wants to know if this organization is limited to Black girls.
No, it's limited to girls in underprivileged communities. So they right now the target is in the Dallas area, and so right now we're impacting the Oak Cliff area because there is a program. It's a 2-year program, so they're coming in on a monthly basis to learn about cultural education. They learn etiquette skills. They're learning Spanish. They're learning, we do mental health circles and stuff like that. So it is based, and the girls do come into the organization. So it is for any girl that live in an underprivileged area. My passion though is for girls of color. I'm going to say that because I feel like we're, underrepresented when it comes to opening these doors. But yeah, we don't discriminate.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing about that. I think it's such a great project. It's such a great mission. So y'all, if you have time, if you have a talent, that would be a great addition. If you are like Stephanie and don't believe money is real, and if you don't give it, if you don't spend it or give it to a charity, you got to give it to the government instead. Go ahead and spend that money. Even if you do think if you're like me and think money's real, still consider donating to this, because it would be an awesome experience to get those girls abroad. So where are some of the other trips you have either done or envisioned or have planned coming up? What are some other places besides Oaxaca?
For the organization,
Yes.
so we have Costa Rica. Like I said, we also partner with 4-H, and 4-H have a connect with Costa Rica. We have Japan, and we have the UK. I'm actually in the midst of getting some details solidified with one of the universities in London for us to be able to stay there. We're trying to reduce costs as much as possible. Free is better, but so we try to work with other organizations too to like reduce those costs, especially when it comes to stay. But right now, those are the picks of us going in our future trips. And yeah, as we go along, we'll see what's open, what we want to do, and what's next. So it's just a journey. We all doing a journey, and I'm taking the girls the journey with me.
Okay, that's amazing. It's a really cool project. Thank you. I asked already what it costs for a girl to go on a trip, but in case the answer is different, CK wants to know how much is needed to sponsor each girl.
Yes, to sponsor each girl is $5,500.
Okay. All right. That's money.
It is.
But how many girls do you say you normally take on each trip?
So 10. Each
Okay.
is to 10 girls. They do have like their requirements too to go to trip abroad. So these girls also, like, we want the young girls to be bought into the organization. We just don't want to, oh, we're going on a trip, right? Like, oh, it's going to be this fun trip. We're going to whatever. But it's really based on a lot of civic engagement, community engagement, and then they have to have like attendance. They have to meet attendance requirements to go into the program. So at the end of the day, now the passports that we give, which is in November, is our like date that we'll like take the girls to get their passports. Any girl that's in the program, we will do that. But like to do the trip abroad, they have to have attendance requirements.
And what is the cost for sponsoring a passport for one of the girls?
$185.
Okay. Dig deep, y'all. Dig deep. Okay, now I know I got to get you out of here because Duchess said this interview is over. I can hear her in the background saying, "This was fun. I want my mama back, though." So let's run through some more tax questions real quick. And Duchess said, "Y'all been talking too long. What are you doing?" Okay. We answered TJ's question. Okay, a quick question from CK. If California properties, because we talked about residency for different states and how owning property can make you look like a resident even if you don't think you are. If California property is put in a trust, will one avoid the California residency burden?
No, it doesn't. It don't. And sometimes I see like people get some information like on like Instagram and be like, oh, put it in the trust or whatever. Admit, it don't. It doesn't. Because you still had an attachment. Your trust is still an attachment of you being that state resident. Again, it just depends on like what is it doing? Is it sitting in the trust? What is is it paying? Is that trust paying out anything to someone, a family, or you know? So if that's the case, it doesn't relieve your tax burden. But there are, certain trusts that will protect. And that's the thing, like a lot of times the trusts don't omit tax burdens. It's a protection vehicle for what you put in that trust account. And again, it just depends on, there are certain property, taxes and stuff like that you can probably, reduce by being in the trust, but that's about it. But it don't avoid California residency. You're still a California resident if you're a California resident.
Okay. Do you have experience working with UAE-based expats working on the new UAE freelancer visa?
So I do not work on any visa processing in the country that you're moving to.
I don't think she means processing the visa. Yeah, I think she just means people who are over there on that visa.
Oh yeah, I work with anyone in wherever you get, I work at, so you can beware. If they start letting us on the moon, I'm gonna find a way to work people on the moon. But yes, when it comes to like UAE based expats, depending on what your income is coming from, I could navigate through that. UAE, they don't have income tax or whatever, so I know that you have certain benefits of living in UAE and not being taxed or whatnot. So that is a benefit there. And so like for people, I do want to say, so for people that live in low to give me 1 second. I'm going to take Dutchie in there
She is tired of us.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry. I am so sorry that it's so.
No need to apologize.
One, and then did she just come back?
Came
Okay.
right back. She said, no. What I want is you.
Oh, she was telling me get off and pay attention. But some countries that you don't is low or no tax burdens. We typically would do the FEIE for that client, but for those who in high tax countries, we'll look more into the foreign tax credit or exclusions versus the FEIE. And then depending on with children, if you have children, and you typically earn income like credits and stuff, we'll look at other avenues to reduce your tax liability in the US, because when you exclude the income, you no longer have income, so you don't qualify for those credits.
So FEIE, foreign earned income exclusion, isn't going to be right for everybody.
It's not.
Look at you being smart and knowing stuff out here. Thank you. Because I'm always like, yeah, there's that thing. You can exclude your income without thinking about the fact that you're right. Like if you can get credits, you don't have the credits if you don't have the income.
Right.
Get you a tax accountant who knows some things, right? Like, come on, y'all. I'm going to drop her link again where you can schedule a discovery call with her. Sasha Turner has a real specific question. As a Georgia resident receiving Social Security, a small pension, and a couple of high-yield savings accounts moving to Panama, should I change my home state to avoid taxes?
In your case, it just depends, but Social Security, a lot of it is untaxed. Depending on how much is the percentage of your high yield savings. If you got like a lot of money, you're just earning just that much, then it's probably not worth it. But a small pension, it might not even be worth you doing all the work to move in, domicile in another state, because number one, as a resident, all those types of income, you wouldn't even qualify again for the FEIE. So if you're just trying to like not be taxed on a little money, then you could. It doesn't hurt, but I don't always also recommend people leaving their state, because it depends on your situation. It depends on what you have going on in that state. It depends on, there's a possibility that you may come back. Also, again, sometimes if you leave and you have children that you get scholarships from or whatever, like it's so many other nuances to play a role to say, okay, I'm going to leave the state, because there might be state benefits that you get, by being in that state too.
Okay. Raven's question is related, and I think we answered it before, but I just want to be really clear about this, which is, when I move abroad, I don't intend to work, but plan to live on Social Security, pension, and investments. Will I be expected to pay taxes abroad if I earn over the specified amount from the investments?
Yes, you would. And I'm thinking you're talking about, would you be required to pay US taxes? You are required to pay US taxes on all the above. Whether the foreign country you move in, it just depends on that country. Some countries, a lot of countries will make tax investments, and some of them won't tax pension and Social Security. So it just depends on that country. But for the US, yes.
Okay. Nisha wants to know, when we're scheduling an appointment with you, is the time they're seeing your time or their time? I think it's their time. I just looked
It
at that.
depends on, it's normally your time. It has like a little selection on the drop down. On my calendar, you can select the time zone that you're in. So
yeah, so right now, yeah, it says Seoul for me.
Yeah.
Whew, child. Okay. Winnie has a great question. I missed it so far. If you have medical expenses in your new country, can you include them when you file U.S. taxes?
Yeah, absolutely. You could, if you are itemizing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're filing, your income tax and you're itemizing, so using a Schedule A, you could potentially use that as part of your itemization. Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect.
Also, childcare for those who do got kids living abroad.
Child, you can get a credit for or whatever the taxi thing for
Dependent
for
credit.
childcare.
Yeah, so the child independent credit, you can possibly get the credit here in the US if you're paying childcare abroad. There's a little, things that I have to do on my back end so I can recognize it, because typically they ask for like a federal tax ID number in the US, but there is a way for us to get around that and you to qualify for that.
I like it when I learn things from my guests. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Learning things. All right. I want to get you out of here because truly, Duchess said, that's enough. Yes. Lana says this woman has all the answers.
Thank you. I don't have all of them, but I try. I do a lot of work and make sure I have to stay up on my tax laws too, so I can make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do for you guys.
We appreciate it. Sarah, who just moved to Mexico City, not to put her business in the streets, but I know she said it here before, said, is securing health insurance considered a medical expense?
Not necessarily. It's actually so like the premiums is not included. So like health insurance is what your medical expenses. So if you go get surgery or you paying out of pocket on the cost of medical, then that is what is considered an expense, not your premium that you pay for your medical insurance. And it's whatever your out-of-pocket medical expenses are, if that makes sense. It's the same like the US, so you can't do it in the US either.
Okay. All right. Nisha just reminded me that it is it's almost 3 a.m. where I am. And Duchess wants to go.
Nisha, because I did see Nisha's name come across, so I look forward to talking to her.
Yes. Last question is going to come from Carpe Diem. Is it possible for me to own rental property in one state and set up domicile in a different tax-free state?
So it's possible, but it depends too, because it depends on the rule of that. States have different rules, number one. And owning property in some of the states, you are still considered to file and or possibly pay taxes from the earnings of that rental property. So therefore, it still will have you attached to that state. Again, it just depends on the location and the intent. So I do want people to kind of like understand it's not like a, one for all, because sometimes too, in the state will ask, do you have property, earning income in this state? So when it just depends, honestly. It just depends. But typically, yeah, owning rental property in a state that you have to pay state taxes, you do have to pay, the earnings and the requirements and property taxes and all that other stuff that come with that state. Okay. What I would say, if you, and this is not for everyone, but depending on if you're like a investor or you're doing this for a business, you may want to look into like, putting it up under your business. And then there's a way to like, because people have businesses everywhere and not like, have to pay taxes depending on that business. So it's certain ways we have to, look into if that state will allow you to do that.
This has been so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
The feedback
welcome.
has been great. Amazing. It's like I said, it's almost 3 a.m. here, and I'm still talking about taxes, which is outstanding. Thank you for being here, you guys. I dropped in the comments a couple times how to contact MaCara. I dropped the link to Projects to Passports so that you can talk to her about donating. You know what we don't do? We don't hit her DMs asking her tax questions.
I don't answer the DMs really. If it's text related, I'm not answering them. I'm gonna send you my link to if you
Woo! I love a woman with boundaries because what are we doing here? Okay. All right. So schedule a free, right? A free discovery call.
Yes, free discovery call. And this is just basically kind of get information. I'm not gonna give you crazy tax advice. I might give you some like little tidbits, but it's not a strategy session. It's just for me to learn your business, for you to understand what we offer, and if we can help you, then we'll move. I'll select, offer different packages that might qualify for your situation. But we have many packages that we offer. Once you book with me, you'll get a booklet of our services and offerings. And yeah, we would love to have you around for Around the World Leisure. So hopefully I see you guys.
So y'all, don't be out here making up your tax stuff. You don't have to do that. I always forget what side people are on. I have provided a Black woman who will come and help you. Not come. She's not coming. She's staying with Duchess right there. But but who you can meet with online and will help you with your taxes if it's before your move and you have questions about how to set things up right so that you can lower your tax liability. If it's while you're moved and you're not sure what you're responsible for in the US and abroad, MaCara can help you. So don't be out here winging it like some people do. Get you somebody who knows what they're doing. I have an accountant. I just avoid her.
Look, you guys, it is so, when you take that pressure off of you, I know a lot of people feel pressure, and a lot of people didn't even know that they even supposed to file taxes once they move abroad. I get that a lot. And so they get very scared and shut down. Like, we're going to help you navigate that and take that pressure off of you and give you I actually really do care about, you guys, taxes, your compliance, but also your overall financial well-being, because at the end of the day, it's to be free, mentally free, unshackled, not having these things, tied to you, so you can live, thrive, and be happy abroad. Get it to somebody else.
All right. If you're still here, you're watching, hey, give us a thumbs up, give it a thumbs down, give it a thumb. You decide which thumb to give it. I think it's an up. If you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. And while you're doing that, there's one thing I want to ask MaCara about. I see in groups occasionally, it's usually an anonymous person who kind of declares either when they move abroad, they're not paying taxes anymore, or now that they know they're moving abroad, they're not paying taxes anymore. What would you say to that person?
I don't know if I can say that, but you heard the mess around and find out.
But what are the consequences?
The consequences, the big consequences is them taking your passport. The IRS, it's in their policy. If you're not filing taxes like you're supposed to do, they will take your passport. And you don't want that. Like, you want your passport to be here. Not only that, the compliance fees, what you owe, like, it's so much, the failure to file, failure to pay, like, it's astronomical. Even with the FBARs, for those who have foreign accounts, what they charge is not worth it. And at the end of the day, the U.S. requirement is to file. That don't mean you have to pay. You might not owe anything, especially with the different exclusions and credits and everything like that. Don't run away from your responsibility to file in the U.S. Again, that don't mean you will pay. So yes, you can pay. They can also put liens. They can take your money. Especially if you got a U.S. account, they will put liens on your U.S. bank accounts. They will stop. You won't receive no money, and you don't want to be stuck in somebody's country with no passport, with no money. So just be aware. Just do your due diligence and get it done. It's not that bad. And even if you do happen to have to pay something, they have payment plans. You can work reductions. They have like all different type of ways to reduce that. Or if you know, a low income person, it's possibly that you can get some of those, you know, what you owe reduced or erased. So it just depends. But just make sure you do your due diligence.
Because when I hear take your passport, I always think about, I come to the US border and I try to give it to them and they never give it back to me. Right? But it really, like, they could just make your passport invalid from a distance, right?
Oh yes.
So absolutely. Now I'm in the south of France having the time of my life and I can't go nowhere because baby girl ain't got like
and honestly, and it's a trickle down effect, because if it's taken in the US, if you're in the south of France and their requirement was for you to have that US passport to be able into that south of France, and that is rejected, and now you in the south of France illegally, you might go to jail. So it's not worth it at the end of the day. And I also get people talking about they just gonna, like, you know, renounce their citizenship. If you ain't got the moolah, baby, I don't even recommend announcing your citizenship, because the blue passport still right now is still a very strong passport. And you know, when you're renouncing things, there's possibly, you know, especially those who have money that coming out of the, you know, government money, that can possibly, you know, affect that. So yeah, so just file. It's not that hard, y'all. It's not. It really isn't. It really is not.
Ola Yinka said, I can't believe I didn't know they can take your passport. Yes. So whenever I see people saying, like, you know what, I'm just not gonna pay my taxes no more, what they gonna do? I'm always like, I'm not a tax person, so I'm gonna stay out of this. But I hope somebody does chime in and tell them.
Yeah.
You could be in jail in the south of France. You could, and not just like an immigration jail. Y'all know you don't want to end up in an immigration jail with nowhere to go, because where are they gonna send you? I guess they can send you back to America, but you ain't got no passport in America. So when you get back to America, you're gonna be in trouble too.
And then you're gonna have to go back and file, you know, and do everything. You're gonna have to do it regardless. So even if you want to reactivate your passport, you still gotta go all them years and file what you didn't file. And then you're gonna pay, because now you got this big balance because the failure to file, failure to pay. Even though we do have streamlined process for those who really just didn't know. Because there are those who really did not know, and we can look into that if that's your situation. But you still just going to end up filing. That's it.
Just file and see. I think for a lot of us, and this happens, I want to say, to most people in different areas of our life, there's something that we're just afraid to face. Like, I don't even want to see them numbers. Like, whether it's how much I owe creditors, how much I owe the government, or how much I have in savings. But like, when we get around the money, a lot of times we're like, what if I just ignored that? What if I just ignored that? And so MaCara is saying, don't do that.
It don't.
You know me, I'm gonna tell you, do the math. Do the math. Have someone, if it's not MaCara, if you already have your person, do it. If you don't have a person, I have brought you a person. Do a discovery call. See if it's a good fit. Oh, that leads to my last question. This is it, I promise. If someone just has a pile of papers, just stuff. Maybe they haven't filed in a year. Maybe someone didn't file their 2023 taxes. Maybe. And they schedule an appointment with you now in February. Can you get them right by tax time, by April 15th?
Oh yeah. Typically, if you owe, what we do when you owe, like you haven't filed in previous years, we do we do the oldest, depending on how many years that we'll go back, because sometimes it's not beneficial to do all the years, but we'll go back to a certain amount and get it filed from when you're supposed to file until today, so 2024, which is now open and due.
Okay. Now, this is the second question. I lied. I'm sorry. I always think of accountants as like chilling year round. No, I know it's not true. And then like super focused, serious work in like the first quarter. If someone is watching this video on April 13th, April 10th, is it too late for them to reach out to you for getting stuff done by April 15th?
So it can be, yes. But it depends, because April the 15th is the filing deadline for everyone. However, if you're a U.S. expat living abroad, you automatically have a 2-month extension. So June 15th is actually your deadline to file. Now, if you're required to pay taxes, extension is not in that, extend to pay. If you owe taxes, you do have to pay by April the 15th. So if there's someone who is due or want it done by April the 15th, and you come to me April the 13th and want it done, it's not going to get done, to be quite honestly. I normally take a week. I stop a week prior to accepting clients to come in until, doing that, because I still got other clients. I got to chase them down. I got to chase a lot of my clients down for stuff. So I'll be focusing on chasing them down to give me the stuff that they need so we can file by that April the 15th. And I care about my mental health, and I don't want to be around here going crazy and like feeling like I'm crazy. You know what I'm saying? Trying to get everybody done. So yeah, it is a deadline. If you want it by April the 15th, is a week prior.
Okay. Tara asked, it's not my question, so I've only lied to you once. Tara said, for people who are living abroad, do you have to do anything for the automatic extension?
No, once we do your, the computer system reads that when we do your taxes and there's something on my end to say, it says, are you living outside of the US? So that indicates that, so there's nothing you have to do. Now, if you need extra time outside of June 15th. So what I do is a little strategy for those who want to get FEIE, but they're not going to think they're going to make that 330 deadline by April or June, or even sometimes October the 15th. What we'll do is do an extension out to try to capture as many days as possible, but I'll look at that once you're a client of mine. And so if you do need an extension to October the 15th, which is offered for anyone, you do have to put an extension in. So that's either doing it yourself or having your tax provider do it for you. One thing I noticed with my clients, when it gets towards like a day before April the 15th, I automatically put everybody on the October the 15th extension. That's just because, just to be on the safe side, like, girl, I don't know, I can't depend on, whatever. So they automatically go through an extension. Another thing, being a client of ours, once you're a tax client, I do offer a 1 year, like every year you get like a 1 hour, like tax review, mini tax planning session strategy that's offered to all the ones that's become clients of Around the World Ledger. So we'll talk about like ways to make sure you stay on top of things, make sure you're withholding properly, what are your goals, your strategies, whatever. Like it's more of a, conversation to make sure you stay on top of things and everything.
Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Please give Duchess all the ear scratches so she knows how much we appreciate her sharing you with us. And I don't get too much in your business. You have a daughter, right?
I do have a daughter and a son, but yes.
Tell them we said hi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Wishing you nothing but amazing things in your business, hoping that you get a lot of amazing people coming to you from this avenue, and that Projects to Passports is just blooms and is wonderful, and everything you want for it actually happens. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I wish you the same too.
Thank you. And thanks to Marissa, my old VA, for scheduling this. Appreciate you. When you work with somebody and they're really amazing, and then they're like, nah, I'm not going to do this work no more, I feel like you should get to fight them at least one time. It's like one time, just one or something. Like, it's probably not the right approach, but it's hard to find people who are really amazing at what they do. Anyway, that's not the point of this conversation, but you can tell I'm carrying a little bit inside about that. Okay, thank you, MaCara. Thank you, everybody. We will talk to you guys next
have
time.
A wonderful day or night. Bye.
Bye.